So, Erik, as Mystery's wingman and business partner, can you first explain to us the definition of solid game?
Yeah, so solid game is essentially the idea that the majority of women are not open to fast escalation the majority of the time. Therefore, fast escalation game, the majority of the time, is not the most effective style of game. Debate over. No, just kidding.
Alrighty, Ross, as the godfather of the pickup artist community and the creator of speed seduction, can you explain the definition of fast game or speed seduction or whatever term you
Yeah.
personally use yourself?
Before I do that, I want to draw a broader frame and go meta here for a second, because it's really, really important to get the context of everything else I'm going to be saying during the next hour and 90 minutes or however long I participate. Here, number one, any model that you have is going to be incomplete. Models are useful, maps are useful, but the map is not the territory, the menu is not the meal. So any model is both useful and inherently flawed and maybe even a little misleading. So nothing I'm going to be advocating for today is true with a capital T. Michael is a scientist, I'm not. It's only a useful map that I have used. I've taught to literally tens of thousands of students, and it does get the results that it predicts when you apply it. It doesn't exclude other people having models and maps that are different. And I'm not saying that those models or maps don't work. I'm simply saying that when you are stuck in your model, when you're stuck in your map, you may not see the possibility of other people's systems working better than your own, or even just differently. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Now, ask your question again. I'll answer that specific question you asked.
Alrighty, so the question again is, what is your definition of fast game or speed seduction or whatever term that you personally
Yeah.
use?
So speed seduction is a way to very quickly evoke, elicit, create the kind of emotional states in women that they crave. States like feeling deep comfort, states like feeling incredible connection, states like feeling arousal and desire. And my claim, which is, I think, I know is backed up by my students, is that you can do this very quickly. You can create comfort very quickly through the power of suggestion. If you are leaving the power of suggestion and the ability to communicate with someone's unconscious mind on the table, then you are losing a tremendous ability to have influence in all contexts of life. And so speed seduction utilizes the power of suggestion, communicating with a woman's unconscious mind, and you don't look at things in certain Blaze talked about escalation. We don't view escalation as something you do at the end of a particular sequence. By doing this stuff, you can do it all simultaneously with the other things that you're doing. So effectively, that's what speed seduction is. And we don't rely on trying to trigger genetic responses to different measures of value. For me, the greatest value you can provide a woman is evoking those emotional states that she craves. And that's basically my definition of my system.
Alrighty. So where would you guys like to start? Anyone would like to start for us?
Yeah, I'd probably just like to make a little opening too. Essentially, I think sex is amazing. I like sex. I think every girl fucking loves sex. And when it comes to interactions, the better we can get to a sexual experience, the better for both of you. It creates a bonding between you. It really increases chasing frame and power dynamic on your side here, so she chases more. And and so yeah, that's what I want to get to as soon as possible. And if you have the skills to do that, then why not? Now, obviously, if you're a student that has no idea what he's doing, you might want to tell him to take it a little bit slow. But if you have a student or someone that knows how to escalate smoothly and can get the girl to a state where she's craving to have sex with you on the first night, then I don't see why you wouldn't do it.
The question, though, is, are the majority of women open to that fast escalation the majority of the time? And I don't think that they are. I think the majority of women may be open to fast escalation, just not the majority of the time. Therefore, pursuing a fast escalation strategy may be your preferred method, but it's not the most effective method more broadly.
Okay, so that's a good question. What do we think the percentages are here? How many women do you come across that are, and by the way, fast escalation, I'm assuming we mean first night. Is that's what I'm going by? Is that what you
Well, so
by?
there's a 7 hour rule that Mystery came up with, right? That says that on average, it takes between 4 to 10 hours from meeting a woman to beginning a sexual relationship to, with the average being at about 7 hours. So on the short end, it could be 4 hours. On the long end, it could be 10 hours with an average of about 7 hours of FaceTime with her.
So my interjection immediately is this is based on Mystery's model, based on Mystery's techniques, based on Mystery's technology and what he's been able to do based on that. And so obviously it works for him, it works for his students. And the question is, if you have a completely different viewpoint, if you can see things that other people can't see, and you understand the power of communicating with someone's subconscious mind to elicit and evoke emotions, then the whole idea of the average woman, so I would turn around and say, does the average woman dream at night? And the answer is, of course, everyone dreams at night. So the question then becomes, can you communicate with that part of consciousness, the dreams? If you can do that, then you can create these emotional states, not just a sexual state, but deep comfort. I think part of the Mystery method involves a comfort phase. And I'm saying that comfort can be created in a matter of 3 to 5 minutes, as impossible as that sounds, by using the power of suggestion. And then, as Michael will tell you, through empathetic or empathic communication, it can be done. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Michael, but within an hour, if you know how to do it. So that's my answer. As far as the
So
average woman, well, I
let
don't
me
know what.
pop in and just say this is not just Mystery's model. This has also been true according to my experience as well. Faster escalation can take place if you have solid game, if you have good game. You can trigger arousal and strong emotional responses quickly. Women from a biological standpoint can be ready for sex within a matter of minutes or seconds, right? But with social conditioning on top of that, when you go out, the majority of women are in groups. If you're meeting them in a night game scenario, online dating, are they going to go from an online dating platform to sex within a matter of a few hours? The majority of the time, are they going to go from a grocery store, a day game approach, to having sex within a few hours? The majority of the time. And then if you're in a social circle situation, you're networking with people, you're out with mutual friends, are they going to peel away from the group and have sex with you in a few hours the majority of the time? The answer is the majority of women are not open to this type of game the majority of the time. Therefore, it's a less effective style of game the majority of the time.
I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that's 100% right. I think if we look at data, we see that about half the people in the population are open to, let's say, like a one night stand, which they consider like fast escalation, let's say within 4 hours. I think if you look at data, it's about 21% of women would say they're open to a one night stand. I agree with that. With most men, and with like the very slow method that Mystery seems to promote here, which has almost zero sexual authority, which has almost zero like objection handling. It's basically just sit by, let's try and make this girl comfortable as if you're on a date with your grandmother, and let's take it like really slow. Yeah, I think you'll probably hit those stats. You'll probably hit about 20% of girls that might make a move and might want this to be a little bit more, fast. But fuck that. Listen, what I like to teach is, okay, 20% of women are comfortable with a one night stand or like a quick escalation with most men. Don't be most men. All right. We're going to I'm different than these guys. I don't give a fuck about comfort. I just want a little bit of trust with her, and then I'm building crazy amounts of sexual tension, and I'm having a lot of authority here. And if she has any concerns, we're going to deal with them. So I agree. Like, there's a lot of societal concerns that most girls have where they feel like a slut. We just need to get out of that dynamic where it's like, hey, I actually think it's amazing that you can be sexually open. And these are the, we want to get to a point where we can explore your sexual kinks and have amazing pleasure and fuck what society thinks. And then you start to see a reversal here where most women primarily really enjoy sex and would love to have it if there are no societal issues around that. And so you just create that dynamic. And then I think you face a situation where most women will want to have sex quickly.
Well, so I knew I was going to win somebody over on this debate to my side. I thought it might be Ross, but I guess I've already won Markus over. So you agree that the majority of women are not open to fast escalation the majority of the time. Therefore, running fast escalation game is not the most effective style of game to run the majority of the time.
Sorry, yeah. Let me just
interject.
respond to that 1 second. 100% for men that have no idea how to do it. So if I just took someone off the street and I could teach him nothing other than, hey, what should I do? Should I try just like fuck this girl within 1 hour, or should I take it a little bit more slow? I'd probably say I wouldn't say 4 hours or like 7 hours, but I would say take it a little bit more slow. But that's not what we're dealing with here. We're saying like, if you could teach someone, or like what's more optimal for someone that's advanced, then 100% every single time is going to be doing it faster. 100%.
So
Sorry,
you
Ross,
think you think though that the majority of the time you can pull a woman fast. Like the majority of women will go home with you quickly.
Yes, all around the world. In Eastern Europe, where there's a lot of I actually did a year where I tracked this, and literally it was like 95% of girls were on that first night, and my dates are usually 1 hour or one drink, or they're coming straight to the house. If it's night game, then it's going to be a little bit more skewed depending on like what obstacles I'm dealing with here. I've had, to the more extreme example, sometimes where girls like really don't want to leave their friends, and I'll wait a few hours at the club for that to happen. But the point there isn't I'm waiting because I don't think she's ready. She's down, or we're like going to the bathroom in the club or some shit, but it might just be a logistical reason there. But those are the rare occasions. So yes, out of all my closes, which is like over 600, almost all of them have probably been within that 4 hour mark that you think is
Ross,
not
I want to
acceptable.
Ross, I want to let you talk, but I just got to pin you down on this. So 95% of the women that you approach are going home with you within a matter of a few hours. I don't know anybody who
You're
has
mistaking.
stats like
You're
that.
mistaking what I'm saying. Please hear
Hang
what
on.
I'm.
But
Please.
sorry, I'm not saying 95% of girls that I look at or that I say hello to are coming home with me. Obviously, there's going to be girls that have boyfriends and things like that and whatever. I'm saying like 95% of the girls that I like build attraction with or I'm closing is going to be within that time frame. And it's not going to be, I need to wait like 3 weeks, 3 days, 10 hours.
Who's saying to wait 3 weeks? And who's saying comfort is like hanging out with your grandma? You're making up these terms.
No, that's exactly what it feels like. I don't want a girl to say, because I've seen the escalation model and I've seen a lot of guys that use this, and it is that. It is you're trying to create comfort through sitting there and asking us some like personal questions or like hanging out. There's very little sexual tension that ever happens, except for like maybe some kino escalation where you're sitting there, you're having a conversation, and then you're like trying to touch your shoulder or some shit.
We build massive sexual tension. That's
Then
why
why are
we
you
slow
not
it
closing
down.
these goals earlier?
That's why we slow it down
No,
to build
you're
more
not building
sexual
massive
tension.
sexual tension. There isn't. I'm sorry. If there's massive sexual tension, that we probably have different definitions. Okay. Massive sexual tension. When I hear that, the girl is all over you. She's talking about her fantasies. She's talking about how she wants you to fuck her later. That is like massive sexual tension. If you're just talking about like the girl holding eye contact, then that's not massive sexual tension.
I want to interject something.
Sorry, go for it, Russ.
When you use the word escalation, there's an implication embedded inside of that. The implication is that these things necessarily have to happen sequentially. I am saying that you can build comfort very quickly in such a way that that comfort itself is very stimulating, because being seen, the perception of being seen, the perception of being heard, the perception of being given permission to be who she actually is is in and of itself sexually arousing. And here's what I'd like Michael to come in with the science. This is not just, what's the word? This is not just speculation or the word is slipping me. I'm getting old, but Michael, please come in here with the science.
All right. So let me add a lot of things that what Ross actually tried to, present here, and that is that it's a huge difference between using a specific way of communicating that goes into the elements that trigger attractions in women's brain. And we know that there are very little things that actually trigger the neurotransmitters that is associated with attraction, sexual attraction, and bonding.
Let me just agree with Ross really quick while Michael is fixing his mic. So the mystery method, the M3 model, escalation takes place sequentially at a certain point. I actually agree with you, Ross, that escalation can start at different points, and it depends on how we're defining it. So escalation can begin very quickly.
Michael's back.
Okay, I'm back now. So let me make my point here. So in order to be able to attract women from a scientific perspective, what we know is that we have to go into a certain depth in conversation to make her talk about what she think about things and about herself in the area that matters. That's the only approach we have seen scientifically that actually triggers women's neurotransmitters in her brain that is directly associated with attraction and sexual attraction. What Ross is using in his NLP approach is actually to take things into depth where we actually trigger the women's neurotransmitters to feel instant attraction towards a person that can communicate in that way. And based on her being in that emotional state, we then have a lot of room to actually escalate. That is what the fast escalation is coming from. We basically are using scientific methods to really go into the elements that trigger attraction. And once the women are attracted or feeling a sensation of very drawn to someone, basically bonded to someone they really like, then we have the power of actually start escalating. And that is not a system we can use in terms of an instrumental language. Like we're supposed to show a certain passive value traits in order to make them attractive, or we should in some way trying to convey her that we are the leader of men, or we are taking our own perspective to show her how cool we are. So many times by the top scientists in the world, both in behavioral science, in psychology, and also in communication. So one of the most powerful things to do is actually using the power of curiosity and give your attention towards the other person and make it about them. Once we start making it about them in depth, that is what we have seen with the science that is best by far when it comes to attract and bond with women. There's no question about it. That is what I've seen in the science.
Talk about the neurotransmitters. Talk about the specific neurotransmitters and the fMRI studies.
Okay, so what I can tell you now is they have done a lot of studies about what actually attracts people. So when we look at men, for example, when we're going to put men into a room and they're going to look at attractive women, and then we're going to use a neural imaging to actually measure the neurotransmitters that get released in men's brain, we can see directly that dopamine, endorphins, serotonin, and oxytocin, the four main neurotransmitters that is associated to attraction, sexual attraction, bonding, and love itself, was triggered immediately once men saw beautiful women. They made the same study on women, and what we saw there was basically nothing. When women saw beautiful men that had, they were presented like they have some sort of status, they have some sort of wealth, and then they measured the neurotransmitters of those women when they saw those men. Not much happened. A small amount of dopamine was increased, which was an indicator of she might be.
Yeah, Michael talked about this on one of the panels. He said that the four main neurotransmitters associated with arousal light up very quickly when men are stimulated visually by an attractive woman. Women that see men that have higher status and, you know, all the traditional value indicators, right? They have a little spike of dopamine, but when somebody taps into their subconscious, when somebody really gets to know them on a deeper level, which is a lot of what Ross teaches, all of a sudden those neurotransmitters light up. So when running a faster escalation style of game, Ross's game is way more effective, in my opinion, than Markus's game, which is basically putting sexual intent very explicitly on the table. Ross is more about sexual suggestion coming
Okay,
in
sorry.
more.
You think
Yeah.
these aren't going to light up if the girl's thinking about having the best?
I'm not gonna argue with Marcus.
No, you're right, bro. It's
No, so here,
do you not think?
let me
Hang
just
on,
clarify real quick. I'm a
okay, go for
defender
it.
of solid game, but when it comes to fast escalation game, Ross's style of game where you are using certain trigger words, you're entering certain states of mind yourself to evoke subconscious sexual responses, that is much more effective than what I've heard you propose, Markus, which is telling the woman right away that you're going to bring her back to your place for drinks, telling her you're going to give her all these orgasms, like immediately, like, oh, I bet most guys don't know how to please you in bed. Do you really say that stuff to women right away?
Yeah, obviously you've never seen our game, which is fine. I can explain it to you.
Okay.
So if you want to move from someone that basically sits there for 7 hours on a date and basically waits and hopes for a girl to make a move, or you slowly try to like touch her shoulder and then, oh, who knows, maybe hold her hand, is yeah, there are ways you can show sexual authority. So I don't think about it as sexual escalation. I think about it as sexual authority. We want to move a girl to a place where basically she comes to a point where she's like, wow, this guy's amazing in bed and I want to sleep with him. And I know he's not going to judge me. He's not going to sit here 7 hours on a date and treat me like I should have to wait or that I can't express my sexual desires early. So yeah, there's ways you can go about this. The first one is showing an understanding. So instead of saying, hey, I want to fuck you later, you can say like, hey, I'm curious, what type of guy are you typically into, right? The girl can give the answer. And then you to give her a cold read. You tell her what you think. Look, I can tell you're very feminine, okay? You need a very masculine and dominant man, which we know from data. It's like 90% of girls, the 50 Shades Grey effect, right? Is they like a dominant guy. So this is your first step in, and then you can lead the interaction forward. So yes, it does reach a point where the girl can talk about orgasms. You can talk about how many orgasms you're going to give her. You can talk about her fantasies and how you're going to tie her up. There's a whole process that leads to this. It's not just escalation and putting it on her and being like, I want to fuck you. It's allowing her to enter that space. It's allowing her to talk about it. It's allowing her to escalate with it. So yeah, you can reach a space where this girl is thinking about that, and I guarantee you, her fucking brain is going to be lighting up on an fMRI if she's thinking about orgasm. So yeah, of course I think fast escalation is going to be good when I see the evidence of it working. It sounds like you just haven't seen the evidence of it working yet.
Okay.